Okay, let's begin. So, we are trying to look at theories in predicate logic. Yeah, so a theory is a satisfiable set of sentences. We cannot work with formulas with free variables. We have to work with formulas without any free variables, then only we can only decide whether it is true or false. Okay, so this is a theory, and the theory is complete if it makes a decision for every sentence in SL, whether that sentence phi is a logical consequence or its negation is a logical consequence. Yeah, this is the decision problem. Yeah, whether phi is a logical consequence or negation phi is a logical consequence. So if a theory makes decision about every single sentence, then it is said to be complete. Okay, so in words we are saying that the gamma is complete if for every phi either phi is a logical consequence or negation phi is a logical consequence. Now, how to check if a theory is incomplete? Last time in our discussion, I think there was some confusion. So therefore I decided to write it down. So we have to find first, you are given that gamma is a theory. Yeah, so it is satisfiable, so there are models. Then your job to show that it is incomplete, you have to show that the condition for completeness doesn't hold. Which means it is not the case that for each phi one of these is true. So what should we show? There is a sentence, yeah. So find the sentence phi and two different models M1 and M2 such that M1 doesn't satisfy phi and M2 doesn't satisfy negation phi, and this should be doesn't. M2 doesn't satisfy negation phi. Okay, which means what? M1 is a structure, so every sentence is either true or false. So if M1 doesn't satisfy phi, then what will happen? M1 must satisfy negation phi. So M1 satisfies negation phi and M2 satisfies phi. So you have to find two different models which have this. And finding such a sentence is important to prove that it is incomplete. Okay, so suppose now we looked at this same example, but I am going to give you more details here. So we start with a language of orders which consists of only one binary relation, symbol, and gamma digraphs is the empty theory. Empty theory which doesn't have any sentences. So the empty theory is satisfiable. Yeah, I am giving you a reason why. Choose any binary relation on a singleton set. Yeah, that satisfies empty. So empty set is like tautology, yeah, in our Boolean algebra situation. So we are going to claim that this is incomplete. So in order to show it is incomplete, we had to find a sentence. So here that sentence is psi, which says that for all W1 there is a W2 such that RW1 W2. Okay, so we can choose this particular model of the theory of digraphs. Yeah, this model satisfies psi. Can you see that? Yeah, for every node there is an arrow which leaves that node. That is what psi says. So that happens here. I could have also chosen one single point and a loop. Yeah, that will also work. And over there, if I just choose a single point or a single arrow, then it doesn't satisfy psi. So it satisfies negation psi. So by finding this particular sentence and two models like this, we have shown that it is incomplete. Is this clear? Yeah, I simply expanded what it means for the theory not to be complete. That's all. Yeah, but this is a creative job. Yeah, it's not always easy to show that a theory is incomplete. You have to figure out such a sentence which will be true in one model and which will be false in another model. Right? And obviously you cannot expect this M1 and M2 to be same. You understand that? Yeah, because M1 satisfies phi, then it cannot satisfy negation phi. Okay. Good. So let's proceed now. So last time we also saw the definition of logical equivalence. So let us write that. Oh yes, before that maybe I should add one thing. We have talked about difference between lemma, proposition, theorem, corollary, scholium. But in logic also we can define a theorem. Let's define that. So definition. Suppose gamma is a theory and phi is a logical consequence of gamma, which by completeness will mean that there is a proof of phi from gamma. Yeah, but we are not talking about completeness here, so you can understand. Then we say that phi is a theorem of theory gamma. Okay, what is a theorem? Yeah, it's a very simple definition. So what is a theorem of group theory? It is any logical consequence of the theory of groups. So a theorem of group theory is any sentence which is true in all groups. A theorem of the theory of vector spaces is a sentence which is true in all vector spaces. Yeah, that's a theorem. And that's what we try to prove. And what is the meaning of proving a theorem from certain axioms? Well, you simply replace this double turnstile by a single turnstile, which is possible by proof theory. I mean by completeness theorem. Even though in this course we are not going to look at it, there is a well-defined notion of a proof. You understand this? A theorem is nothing but a logical consequence or a deductive consequence equivalently of a theory. Okay, now we can move forward. So let's talk about logical equivalences. Can somebody recall the definition for me of a logical equivalence? Logical equivalence between what? What should be given? What should be the data? Two formulas, not sentences. So say that, and there should be something more. Say that phi x bar comma psi x bar in FL are logically equivalent so two formulas are given in the same set of variables. If their set of variables is possibly distinct, then what do? We take its union, and so that the context is the same. Okay, if for all L structures M and all A bar in M satisfies phi at A bar if and only if M satisfies psi at A bar. Okay, this is just a recall. Now some standard logical equivalences. This is not an exhaustive list. I cannot list all of them. Yeah, there are infinitely many. But I will give you some important ones. So, what can you say about double negation phi x bar? what is it logically equivalent to? Phi. Okay. Phi 1 x bar conjunction phi 2 x bar, that is logically equivalent to phi 2 x bar conjunction phi 1 x bar. So conjunction is commutative up to logical equivalence. Similarly, you can write down conjunction is associative up to logical equivalence. Okay, so everything that we have done for, I mean, whatever is standard logical equivalence for propositional logic, that is also valid here. Yeah, so I am not going to waste more time writing out those things. But what I can do is add something new to the mix. So for example, suppose I am writing this, yeah, phi 1 x bar conjunction phi 2 x bar comma y, but that y I am replacing, I am taking this thing, there is a y here, but that y I am replacing with a quantifier. So I am writing this and I am saying there exists a w. Then what is it logically equivalent to? Think about it. W doesn't appear here. So therefore we can push this to the second side. So therefore we can write that it is phi 1 x bar conjunction, there exists w, this is phi 2 x bar w. Okay, what this allows us is that if a particular bound variable doesn't appear somewhere, then we can move it around. So while we are writing this, I also want to point out something. In this particular formula, on the right hand side, what is the scope of the quantifier? Just phi 2. Yeah, I mean, even though I haven't defined it precisely, you can understand what is scope. Yeah, the quantifier doesn't have to extend to everything. Yeah, that is what this logical equivalence says. Well, another thing which looks quite stupid, but that is also important. Yeah, many times we need to do this. So for example, there exists w1, phi of x bar w1 is logically equivalent to, there exists w2 phi of x bar w2. What are we doing here? We are simply changing the name of the bound variable. It doesn't change the meaning. You understand this? Okay. So this is also a standard logical equivalence. We cannot do this with free variables. Be warned. Yeah, free variables have to be in specific order, but bound variables you can do anything. Okay, another thing. I think I already mentioned this. So suppose there is a formula psi which has two variables replaced by quantifiers, then what can I say this is logically equivalent to? There exists w2 comma w1. Yeah, I mean first w2. So the existential quantifiers, they commute with each other. But I cannot change the position of them inside. The position has to be same. You understand this? Okay. So now some interesting ones. Yeah, this is very okay. So for all, I am also going to talk about something like for all. So there exists w1 for all w2 and psi x bar w1 w2, and on this other side I write for all w2 there exists W1 psi x bar W1 W2. Are these two logically equivalent? I just changed the position of this, I took it inside. Are these logically equivalent? If you are saying no, then you have to, now tell me, what do you have to do? Loudly, one person. Yes, you want to say something? No? As part of group you can speak but not individually. Yes, anybody else? You are saying this is not logically equivalent. So can you tell me one particular instance where this fails to be logical equivalent? So that's why the definition is written. You had to negate the definition. What does that mean? This is for all. So you had to find one. And for all. So you have to find one such that the inner thing does not happen. So if and only if does not happen, which means one of them is true, the other one is false. So can you tell me one thing? So yeah, I mean this is, perhaps we have converted this into a claim that these are not logically equivalent. So can you tell me one particular formula in some language? Yeah, there is no language at play here. You had to choose a language, then you had to choose a structure, and you had to choose a formula, and then show me that this is not true.
You can like take a digraph.
Digraph, very good.
Yeah.
So choose L odd, okay, and which digraph?
Which is the relation?
Yes, you have to choose a particular one. Yeah,
We have n plus 1 vertices.
n plus 1 vertices, okay,
And like label them from 0 to n.
okay,
And there's an edge from every element other than 0 to 0. And
Okay.
vice versa. And those are the only edges.
okay. So you are telling me something like this. If I draw just, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Huh, okay.
So there is
And what is formula psi?
wait, no, you should add a loop from 0 to 0 as well.
From 0 to 0, okay, fine, I will add that.
Okay. So the formula would be like for all, there exists W1 for all your vertices such that there is
There exists W1 such that for all W2,
there is a directed edge W1 to W2.
so R W1 W2, right. Okay, so this particular structure, it satisfies this. Yes, can you see that? Okay, good. And then
It does not satisfy the
it does not satisfy the other one. And why is that the case?
you don't have an edge coming into the vertex 1, for example.
Very good. But you had to write it. Yeah, if at all you are given such an exercise, then you had to write it. I mean, you had to justify why in this particular graph, and how do you do it? By steps. Yeah, this is not for showing off that you can do mental computations. You have to actually write down why this formula is not satisfiable in this structure. So you have to basically show that at particular value, first you replace this for all quantifier with English for all. Then the next thing is there exists quantifier by there exists in English. And then you had to find out some particular things. Yeah, I mean, perhaps you will show that this is not true because since this doesn't satisfy, this particular structure doesn't satisfy it at what?
0, 1.
R comma?
You have 2, 1. Let's say.
2, 1. Okay. Okay, you have to show something like this. I should use this. I mean, maybe I should write it properly. I should say Rxy at 2, 1. Yeah, by showing this, you conclude that this doesn't happen, but that happens That also you have to prove. Yeah, so logic course is not just about understanding, you also have to know how to write. If you don't write and your mental calculations, many times it happens that students send some more explanation in the regrade requests. And then the question is, why did you not write it in the exam paper itself? If you can explain it better, then do it in the exam. Okay, very good. So, if you need to show that something is not logically equivalent, that is the procedure. Okay, so this is not a logical equivalence, by the way, but we can continue with our sequence of logical equivalences. Let's go ahead. I'm going to ask you another question, and let's see if you can figure this one out. So for all w, theta 1 x bar w, conjunction theta 2 x bar w, and here I am going to say for all w, theta 1 x bar w, conjunction for all w, theta 2 x bar w. True or false? Are these logically equivalent? Think about it. I will write another one. I am going to write all four of them, and then you have to tell me whether any of them are true at all. And the last one, there exists w, theta 1 x bar w, disjunction theta 2 x bar w, and there exists w, theta 1 x bar w, disjunction, there exists w, theta 2 x bar w. Okay, which ones are true? First and fourth are true. Yes, can you understand it? Yeah? Why is the first one true? Because it says that for all elements of the structure, theta 1 and theta 2 are both true for all assignments a bar to x bar. Yeah, so both of them are true. So you are making a very strong statement, and over there also we are saying that for all theta 1 is true and for all theta 2 is true. So therefore they are actually logically equivalent. Okay, so this is logically equivalent. One more thing, what is the scope of this quantifier, this for all w quantifier? Just theta 1. Yeah, even though I am not writing brackets, you can understand the concept of scope. And I mean, I am writing again the same variable, same bound variable, and this is allowed. Yeah, I mean, if you want, I can change it to w prime for the other occurrence by using previous logical equivalences, but I don't need to, right? So this is okay. So this is actually logically equivalent. Now how do you show that? How do you show that something is logically equivalent? You have to go through the entire procedure. You have to start with an arbitrary structure M. You have to start with an arbitrary tuple A bar, and then assume that the first one is true. First formula is true, and you have to show that the second formula is true. Okay, so you have to first transform it into English language, and in that English language you manipulate, and then you again transform it back to formal language. You understand this? So that's how you prove that something is logically equivalent. The last one also you are saying it's true. Yeah, because it says that either there is a witness for theta 1 or theta 2. So here also we are saying that either there is a witness for theta 1 or there is a witness for theta 2. So these are logically equivalent and these ones are not. Even if they are not, can you tell me some relation between them? Like, does there always exist a relation? Like one side implies another, one side is a logical consequence of the other. If there is a W which satisfies theta 1 and theta 2 simultaneously, then there is a W which satisfies theta 1 and there is a W which satisfies theta 2 individually also. But the converse is not true, because their witnesses can be different. They need not match. So that's why the converse fails to be true. So I can actually replace it with this side, yeah, but not the other one. Okay, what about the third one? Which side is true? Which side implies what?
Right side implies.
Right side implies left side, yeah? So this one is true over here, but this side is not. Because what could happen here when you are thinking about this, maybe for one element theta 1 is true and for all the other elements theta 2 is true. Then this side is satisfied, but that doesn't mean the other side is satisfied. And I am also giving you a reason to prove it. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you that you should find a structure in which this happens. Yeah, so try these exercises to show that something is not logically equivalent and also to show that something like a pair of formulas are logically equivalent. You understand? Okay. Now let us do something with implication and quantifiers. Let us see if you can figure that out. Let me check if something else was remaining. Oh yeah, I mean, maybe I should write these things down. Perhaps we have already done so, but if I take negation, then this is logically equivalent to for all and negation. That's how we defined it actually. Then if I change this to for all, then you can change this to there exist. Yeah, so nothing is changing over there. Okay, now what if I tell you this? For all W, phi 1 x bar W implies psi. Is it logically equivalent to something? I mean, psi of x bar. Or can I take that quantifier out and then, yes, how? The first thing in implication, what is it? It is negation. Negation of this or the other one. Right? So this is negation. Think about that. So negation of for all is there exists of negation. Do we want negation? Yes. And then can you transfer, like over disjunction, can you transfer there exist? Yeah, I mean this one. Can you do that? Okay. So what should I write here? Tell me. There exists a W such that phi 1 x bar W implies psi x bar. Well, I think we are also using something which was unsaid so far. So, if I write for all w phi x bar, then this is logically equivalent to phi x bar. You understand this? So, w is replacing a free variable which does not occur. This is dependency theorem. Yeah? So, I mean, this is not the exact correct formulation, maybe I should say it properly. If y is not in the set of free variables for phi, then I mean phi, maybe I should say something phi of x bar y, then there exists w phi x bar w is same as for all w phi x bar w. Yeah, this is better. W, I mean y is replacing w, sorry, w is replacing y, but y never occurs. So therefore, whether you take existential quantifier or universal quantifier, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I am saying like for all z, x plus y is equal to 0. And there exists a z such that x plus y is equal to 0. Well, it doesn't depend. So they are equivalent anyway. Okay? So this is the point. Huh? Oh yeah, y doesn't belong. Thank you. Okay. Now the last thing perhaps that the dual version of this implication thing, that if phi 1 x bar implies there exists, sorry, for all w psi or phi 2 x bar w, if I am doing this, then I can take out the for all quantifier and just put it over here. So what you should remember is from the first component the other quantifier comes out, and from the second component we are taking out for all. Yeah, I mean this side had for all over here, and this one had for all at the target of the implication. So these two are different, they behave differently. Yeah, because the first component is always negated, the second component is not. Okay, so once you understand all these things, now I am going to show you a transformation of a particular formula. Okay, so let us start with this. Phi of x bar disjunction, there exists w1 psi of x bar w1, and this whole thing implies for all w2 theta of x bar w2. I am given this formula. I want to transform this formula up to logical equivalence so that all the quantifiers are in the beginning, and the inside formula is quantifier free. Yeah, I mean at least the quantifiers that we can see. Yeah, so assume that phi, psi and theta are quantifier free. Okay, so tell me, up to logical equivalence, what can I do first? Maybe we should first transform the first part, yeah, the first part of the implication. Tell me how to take that out. There exists W1 such that inside what should I write? Phi of x bar, disjunction, and this whole thing. Okay, this is W1 and then implies this. Okay. Then logically equivalent to, can I take out this there exists W1 now? Oh, maybe I should have done one more thing, sorry. I should replace these by W1s themselves. Please make this change. What should be one more step now? No, I cannot do that right now. Can I? You are asking me to bring it out. We can't do that. You have to first make sure that like in every different scope, the bound variable's name is different. Yeah, so first you have to make sure that this is, there exists W1, phi x bar, disjunction psi x bar W1, this whole thing, I mean over here also there should be a bracket, then whole thing, and then implies for all W2 theta of x bar W2. I can change it because the scope of two W1s was different in the previous sentence, in the previous formula. Now once I have done this, then I can take out this there exists W1. And what will it become? Sure, right? Okay, so for all W1, then I put a big bracket, then phi x bar, disjunction psi x bar W1, and then implies for all W2 theta x bar W2, and then the big bracket complete. And then finally I can take out this for all W2. It's in the second component, so it doesn't change to anything different, it just remains as it is. So for all W1, for all W2, now inside I will have phi x bar, disjunction psi x bar W1 implies theta x bar W2. So this formula is said to be, the last formula is in the Preineck's normal form. PNF. You have seen CNF, DNF for propositional formulas. Yeah, these are normal forms. So we can always bring them out. So this is called the Preineck's normal form. So what is the definition of Preineck's normal form? So it simply says that a formula okay, maybe I should write down the theorem directly. Yeah, this is a theorem, but we are not going to prove it. Yeah, so for each theta x bar in FL, there is a formula phi x bar in FL such that theta x bar is logically equivalent to phi x bar and phi x bar is of the form Q1 W1, Q2 W2 up to QK WK, then psi X bar and W1 W2 up to WK, where Q1 Q2 QK, they are either there exist or for all. I am using Q because it's a quantifier, or for all, and psi X bar and Y1 Y2 YK is quantifier free. Yeah, this inside formula should be quantifier free. Every formula which is quantifier free, you can always convert it into either CNF or DNF, that's your choice. Okay, you don't have to do it. Premix normal form means only, it says that the prefix is bunch of quantifiers. And what is our standard practice while doing this? The quantifiers which we write, yeah, those quantifiers, if there is a bunch of there exists, then we do not write there exists so many times. We will say there exists W1, W2, comma W2, yeah, because it's too much to write down. And then it only has to alternate. For alls, there exists, then for alls, then there exists, then for alls. And depending on this, there is something which people call hierarchy of formulas. Yeah, hierarchy of theories. So suppose we write down the theory of groups. What kind of formulas do we use in that? Associativity is expressed by some sentence of the form for all W1, W2, W3. Something happens. Inside part is quantifier free. It's in the Prenex normal form. Then we also say that for all W, W plus 0 is equal to W is equal to 0 plus W. So again inside part is quantifier free. So all of them only use one level of quantification. Yeah, so that is called, this is called, in practice it's called AE. A and E stand for all and there exist. Yeah, they are the inverted symbols. So A and E, complexity. So this is like for all one complexity class. The theory of groups is in the for all one complexity class. Whereas,
inverse uses for all there exists.
No, if we include, yes, that's a good thing. So inverse doesn't use for all if inverse is already a symbol. If inverse is already a unary function symbol, then we just say that for all W, W plus minus W is equal to 0. Whereas if you do not include that particular symbol in your language, then it says that for all W1 there is a W2 such that W1 plus W2 is equal to 0 and W2 plus W1 is equal to 0 or identity. So then its complexity would be 2. Yeah? How many times these quantifiers alternate, that is important, and that we can do. We can measure its complexity, measure complexity of a theory based on its axiomatization, which can be done with minimum complexity, and for that this Prenex normal form is very important. Yeah? So for all one there exists one, then for all two there exists two, and that's how it continues. Okay, we are not going to talk about complexity theory anymore. I just wanted to give you a feel of what it is. Okay, one more thing we should write down now, yeah, that the logical equivalence relation on, I am going to say F L X bar. Yeah, F L X bar means these are the formulas in variables X bar. Yeah, FL x bar is a congruence relation. Okay, what is the meaning of congruence relation? Tell me. If theta 1 x bar is logically equivalent to theta 2 x bar and psi 1 x bar is logically equivalent to psi 2 x bar, then theta 1 conjunction psi 1 x bar is logically equivalent to theta 2 conjunction psi 2 x bar, and negation theta 1 x bar is logically equivalent to negation of theta x bar. Okay. So this is important, and can you tell me why? Because then we can make a Boolean algebra out of it. Okay. So define BL x bar to be FL x bar modulo logical equivalence relation. So notice that we are not saying there is a single Boolean algebra. For each finite tuple of free variables, or for each context there is one Boolean algebra. Yeah, then BL bar x bar can be naturally equipped with the following Boolean algebra structure. Now you have to describe to me what happens. Yeah. So if I take negation of the logical equivalence class of this, how should I define it? I mean, this is the complement, this is the complement of the logical equivalence class of theta 1 x bar. We will define it to be the logical equivalence class of the negation of this. Okay. Similarly, if I take two different classes and take their conjunction, a meet, they take their meet, then the meet is defined to be the conjunction of the logical equivalence class of the conjunction. Okay. What is 0?
The same 0.
What is same 0?
Theta 1 and negation.
Theta 1 and? But do you know any formula exists? You always know one formula exists. Negation x equal to x. Negation x1 equal to x1, right? It will work if x1 is part of x bar. What otherwise?
There exists W negation, W is negation. I mean negation of W.
Okay, so this is, there exists, I mean this one x1, if x1 is in x bar. I mean you have to choose some xi such that it is in x bar. Maybe I will write xi if xi is in x bar. And what if there is no xi? What if we are talking about BL and without any x bars, empty x bar, free variables are empty, which means we are talking about sentences. Then what will be the 0 in that case?
There exists W.
There exists W.
Negation of W.
Okay, there exists W such that negation of W equal to W. Very good. So this particular class can work if X bar is empty. And similarly, you can define 1. I mean, this you could have also written down that negation for all W equal to W. Yeah. So you need quantifiers to talk about truth and false. This is a contradiction. This is a standard contradiction. Right. And similarly 1. What is 1? Negation, like xi equal to xi if x bar is non-empty, and otherwise for all w equal to w. Okay, good. Now let us move forward. So this is a Boolean algebra, and this Boolean algebra is in some sense a universal Boolean algebra. Now I am going to specify how. Let's go to the next slide. So suppose M is an L structure and K is bigger or equal 1. If length of X bar is K, then for each theta X bar in FL X bar defines a subset theta of M, I mean curly M, let me write it properly, theta of M subset of M to the power K. Yeah, how do we do that? Every formula defines a subset of an appropriate power of any structure by, well, let me define it. Theta of M is the collection of all those tuples from M such that M satisfies theta at A bar. Make sense? Yeah, we are talking about all those tuples for which this is true. So for example, yeah, I mean if my formula is simply less equal, for example, L odd is equal to this and theta of xy is equal to rxy. Okay, and my structure is suppose M is let's say 1 2 comma the set consisting of 1 2. Maybe I am making it too simple. Suppose M is 1 2 3. This is given. Now can you tell me what is theta of this M? Yes, tell me. Where is it satisfied? Okay, so I am supposed to give you some set of ordered pairs. Yeah, so the first ordered pair is 1 comma 2, the second ordered pair is 2 comma 3, and the third ordered pair is 3 comma 3. Now I am also going to describe another formula phi of xy is equal to, well, there exists a W such that Rxw. So this is a subset, the original one is a subset of M square. Now can you tell me which pair I am supposed to talk about here? Phi M is equal to what? Which values of x are valid here? 1 to 3. All of them? Yes. So what will phi be? Phi M.
Like every possible
Every possible ordered pair. See, we haven't lost y. Y is free. So you have to include every possible ordered pair. So I mean, I don't even have to write this. I just have to say this is M square. Whereas if phi dash of x is defined to be, there exists W, Rxw, then what is phi dash of M? M. Huh? Yeah, this is only, the context is different here. Context is only one variable. So then now this is a subset of M. This one is the whole thing. Yeah. If I change it to for all W, yeah, I mean maybe I should do this phi 1 of xy is equal to for all W Rxw. Then what will it be? What will be phi 1 of M? Empty set. Yeah, nothing. But this is still a subset of M square. So you understand what we are doing? It's simple. You simply have to write down all the tuples which satisfy a particular formula. That is a definable set. Yeah, this is our definition of a definable set. Yeah, so this is called a definable set. Now what I am saying is, the collection of all definable sets, it also forms a Boolean algebra. Okay, so let def m to the power k denote the set of all definable subsets of m to the power k by formulas in FL x bar where length of x bar is equal to k. Then def of m to the power k together with union, intersection, empty set, then m to the power k, and I mean maybe I forgot something, complement. Yeah, so complement, blank complement, then empty set and m to the power k is a Boolean algebra. Okay, perhaps now we should see why that is the case. Yeah, suppose I take D1 and D2 to be definable. What does that mean, that they are definable? It means that there are two formulas which define them. Yeah, then there are phi 1 x bar comma phi 2 x bar in FL x bar such that phi 1 of m is equal to d1 and phi 2 of m is equal to d2. Then what is the formula which defines d1 union d2? Then d1 union d2 is definable by phi 1 disjunction phi 2. Okay, d1 intersection d2 phi 1 conjunction phi 2. Okay, then next d1 complement negation phi 1 x bar. Then how is the empty set is defined? How is the empty set defined? Same way as we did last time. Yeah, negation of x1 equal to x1, or we will always write, let's say we will always write this, yeah, that there exists a w such that negation w equal to w. Yeah, this will always work no matter whether x bar is empty or not, and the full set is definable by, for all w equal to w. This will define everything. So this is a Boolean algebra. Have I convinced you? Now look at the last slide. Okay, over here when you are looking at phi 1, what is the interpretation of, like what is the set definable by phi 1? It is the empty set. But phi 1, does it look like our formula that for all w negation w equal to w? That is not the formula. So it could happen that there are two different formulas and they will give me same definable set. But those two different formulas are not necessarily logically equivalent. You understand this? So if two formulas are logically equivalent, then obviously they are going to give me the same definable set. But even if they are not necessarily logically equivalent, they can give me the same definable set in some structure. So that is what now we are going to document. So there is a surjective Boolean algebra homomorphism from BL x bar, I mean maybe I should write BL x1 x2 xk, to def m to the power k for any L structure M. And what is this particular map? The map sends phi of x bar, the logical equivalence class of this phi, to the set defined by this. So this is a surjective Boolean algebra homomorphism. Do you understand why it is surjective? By definition of a definable set. Every subset over there has to be definable, so it must be defined by some formula. So that formula, the logical equivalence class of that formula is going to map to that particular definable set. But this doesn't have to be injective. Yeah, because I explained to you from an example that it doesn't have to be injective. You understand this now? So there are so many Boolean algebras that you can think of. And they are all very interesting. Yeah? So these Boolean algebras actually capture, I mean, definable sets are extremely important. Yeah, definable sets actually capture the expressive power of a language in a structure. For example, yeah, if you remember, there was a tutorial problem which asked, can you define the set of perfect squares in n plus 0? What was the answer? No. So what can you define in the set of, like in n plus 0, what all things can you define? They will form a Boolean algebra. What can you define in n plus 0? You can define what is even. You can define what is odd. Can you define what is a multiple of 3? No? You can. Yeah, how do you define it? Let's do that. Okay, so definable subsets of, I'm going to say, natural numbers to the power 1. Yeah, just definable subsets of natural number to the power 1 for structure n plus 0. I can always say that there is a y such that there is a w such that w plus w plus w, I mean, maybe I should write languages f and e. This is 2 and this is 0. Yeah. So there exists a w such that f of w comma w comma w, this is equal to x. This is a formula which defines multiples of 3. Okay. Then similarly I can write down a formula which defines multiples of fixed n. Yeah, so all kn's are definable. So all kn's are definable for k in n. Yeah, even 0n is definable. How? What is 0n? All the multiples of 0. Why is it definable? The formula is x equal to e. Yeah, 0n is definable by x equal to e. Defines 0. Singleton 0, by the way. Yeah, singleton 0. Which other singletons are definable here? Yeah, you can't think of any. Okay. Right. So complements of these sets are definable. So you cannot express that a natural number is of the form 3x plus 1. Yeah, that you cannot express. But you can express that it is not a multiple of 3. It is not a multiple of 5. That you can express. So arbitrary unions, like you had to take this as your basic thing and then you had to generate, and perhaps there are some more. So these Boolean algebras themselves can be complicated. You had to generate a sub-algebra of the power set algebra of natural numbers by using these things. Does this sentence make sense? Sub-algebra of a Boolean algebra, that you know what it is. And how do you obtain a sub-algebra with a given generating set? You take arbitrary unions, intersections and complements, arbitrary finitely many. Yeah, not infinitely many. So that's how you obtain lot of different things. So definable sets, they form a Boolean algebra. So you have an abundance of examples of Boolean algebras by doing this. Every single structure you ask, is this definable or not? Yeah, so this is what the expressive power of different languages means. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, perhaps I will end by giving some examples of a couple of theories, some standard theories, yeah, which we unfortunately did not do last time. Some more examples of theories. Okay, the first one is in this language again, L-ORD. Yeah, and this is called gamma DLO. Yeah, the theory of dense linear orders. We are going to use this theory in the future lectures, so that's why I'm talking about it. So linear orders, you know how to write down axioms, yeah? So axioms for linear orders. And plus one more axiom for density. How do we express density? For all W1, W2? No. If R W1, W2 and, no, there should be something more. We don't know how it is going to be interpreted. So you have to make sure they are distinct. Yeah, and negation W1 equal to W2. Yes, then I complete the bracket over here. Then there exists a W3 such that R W1 W3 and R W3 W2 and negation W1 equal to W3 and negation W3 equal to W2.
We don't need to include the last thing.
Why? We do need to include the last thing.
Is not transitive.
Not equal to is not transitive. Very good. So we do need to include all of these. Yes, here we are simply saying that between if A is less than B, then if A is strictly less than B, then there is a C in between, which is strictly less than. And here, no matter how you interpret R, yeah, R can be interpreted as less equal or strictly less than. We are always taking care of density. So this is the theory of dense linear orders. Sometimes we'll be interested in this theory when it has no minimum element and no maximum element, but you can write that down. Yeah. So no minimum and no maximum and dense. Do you know any examples? Q. Very good. So theory. So gamma DLO, and perhaps I should say no minimum, unbounded. Yeah. No minimum, no maximum. One such model is rational numbers. And another model is real numbers. And, sorry, I'm writing it in the wrong way. I should say that, yeah, rational numbers are a model. And similarly, real numbers are also a model of this theory. In fact, this is the crucial point. So in fact, gamma DLO unbounded is complete, and hence the theory of is equal to the theory of real numbers and rational numbers. These two theories are actually exactly the same. So what are the sentences in these theories, this common theory? They are all the sentences which are logical consequences of just these finitely many axioms. Yeah? So this is what we denote this by Q less than triple equivalent to R less than, and this is read as elementarily equivalent. Structures. So if two structures have same theories, then we say that they are elementarily equivalent. Okay, I am going to stop here. In the next lecture, we'll begin with one more example of algebraically closed fields, theory of algebraically closed fields. Please revise your definitions of algebraically closed fields if you have ever seen them, at least the definitions of fields. And we'll see that algebraically closed fields of characteristic 0 or characteristic P, they again are a complete theory. Yeah, that is the interesting point about them.